welcome to another edition of the Sewing Guru. Now that we've already cut out our main panels in fabric, we're now ready to start cutting out our lining panels. Now as you can see, I've got my lining laid out. Now with lining, as long as you get all of the panels running the same way, it doesn't matter whether you've got your panels running along the selved edge of the fabric. So this is a selved edge here. So usually all the panels would run this way along the selved edge. Okay, so all your panels would be running this way. I've decided with my lining that I'm going to have my panels running this way on the lining. Now that's okay as long as you get all of your panels cut out running in the same direction. So now that we've got that established, I'm now going to start placing my toile onto the lining. Now I've got here, add 3 centimetres to my toile piece at the back here. So I'm going to be adding 3 centimetres on there because I lengthened that. So no matter what you did, whatever you do on the front panel, you have to then incorporate that into the back panel. Okay? So what we're going to do is first off start with our back panels. Now fabrics are always folded like this, so we're going to be getting double panels. Now of course we need 4 panels for the back because we've got a left and a right, and we also need the inside lining as well. Now with waistcoats we use the inside lining and outer lining as the same fabric. You can actually have the fabric back in a fabric as well, okay, so that would be exactly the same as your back panel for the lining. So then you would have the back panels as fabric and the lining panels as lining. But in my case I'm going to just go for the traditional look, so we're going to be having a lined back. So we're going to be doing 4 panels of the back in lining, so that we've got the outer lining and also the inner lining. So we're going to just place this in here, and of course we've got our 3 centimetres in length. Okay, so we need to add that on. The rest of the panel is exactly the same, apart from the length. So let's set my pins here. Let's just pin this panel to our lining. So we're just going to go around. Now remember, you need to get your panel straight, so the grain line of the panel should be straight. Now if you haven't got the grain line on your toile, then you will be able to see that on your actual pattern, and it's just a straight line with 2 arrows on the end, which is your grain line, and that is the line that you follow to get the straightness of your panel. So you would measure your grain line according to the selved edge or the edge of your fabric. Okay, so make sure that you've got your panels straight, and we're just going to carry on pinning this panel in place, okay, before we cut this out. Now of course we do have to also incorporate our dart as well in there, so we will do that later on. So what I actually tend to do is leave my toile panel pinned to the lining until I actually come to need the panel themselves. So that's my panel now laid out. We now need to just measure 3 centimetres, and I'm just going to put some pins along here, okay, which measures the 3 centimetres completely, okay, and then we're going to just elongate and add on this 3 centimetres for our lining, okay, for the actual length at the back. So that is going to be 3 centimetres there. So we can just start cutting along here where these pins are, so that we've got the length of the 3 centimetres of length that I need for my lining panel at the back here. So let's just, in fact I'm going to take this pin out and we're just going to cut around this whole panel here for the lining. So that's the side seam, and now we're just going to go around the arm side. So I'm going to cut this out like that, and then of course the shoulders here, right along. We've got here now our 3 centimetres added onto the length, so we can just go ahead and just cut out the rest of the panel, which is identical to the toile. There's nothing more that needs to be adjusted or added on. Everything now is as it should be. Go around the neck here, like so. There we go. So we now have our lining back panel cut out. Now I need to go ahead now and cut out exactly the same again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then when I've done that, we then need to start cutting out the lining which attaches to the facings and the front panel here. Okay, and there's a really nifty way, very easy way of getting this lining piece to fit in here exactly. So I'm going to show you that in a moment, but I'm first of all going to cut out this other lining panel. Okay, so as you can see, I've now cut out my back lining panels completely, and I have 4 panels here. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can now discard those and we can go on to getting the lining for our front panels. Now there's a really easy way of doing this. What we need to do is get the lining which is going to go in here. So first of all, you need to get your facing panels, and you can see here I've got the edge of my lining here. We just need to just place our lining panel, our facing, on the lining panel here, so that we've got enough here incorporated for our seam allowance. Okay, now I'm going to go in by about 3 centimetres, okay, so we know that we've got enough fabric here, okay, for the lining. Okay, now as you can see that my facing is overlapping completely away from the lining. You know, all of this is just on the table here. The only part is just this part of lining here, which is exactly what we want. So once we've positioned that correctly there, what we can do is just pin the facing onto our lining, like this. Okay. So just going to pin that on here. Like so. There we go. So that's now pinned in place. Okay, that's now secure. In fact, I'm going to put another pin just over here as well, just to get that a little bit more secure. Just put that pin in there, and then of course with all these pins in place, we know that this is not going to move out the way at all. So once we've got that in place, we can now position our front panel onto where the facing begins, like that. So the fronts need to correspond where our facing is. Okay, like this. So make sure that that is all completely aligned along the front here and all along the facing part at the front. Okay, when we've done that, what we can do is just put some pins on the lining there so that it's not going to move. Okay, that's, you know, we just need to make sure that this is not going to move at all. Okay. So we're going to put another pin here on the shoulder, put another pin round the arm side, like that. Okay, so that's now not going to move. And what we're going to do is cut around the shape of our waistcoat front here. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. Right along the entire shape of the front. Along the side seam there, and then we'll come round here. Okay, just make sure that you get the shape here. This is important here. So you've got the top shoulder, and we're now going to go around the arm side of our waistcoat. Making sure that's exactly the same. Okay, so that's now all cut out. Okay, now we can I'm just going to take this lining out of the way because we don't need that. We're only going to be working with the part that we've just cut out. So now, once we've got that, we can now just undo these pins, like so, and take away the main panels. But of course, make sure that the facing pieces are still attached to the lining, as you can see there. Now, what you can do as well is get some tailor's chalk or some pins, and we need to just draw along here the edge of the facing here, like so. Make sure that that's caught. Okay, you need to make sure that that is visible and you can see the chalk. Just make sure that that is chalked in place. Okay, once you're satisfied that that's chalked in place, we can now undo these pins and take our facings off the lining, like that. And here we now need to add on another 2.5 centimetres to incorporate the seam allowances of our facing. So make sure that you've got a decent amount of seam allowance. So I'm just going to cut about 2 centimetres right along and following the actual chalk line that I've made right along our facing. Okay. Like that. And now, as you can see, this part of our lining is going to fit exactly in our front panel with the facing. Okay, so that will fit in there like that, exactly in alignment, and then of course the facing will attach to there, and if we put that right up against the front, completely align it all, as you can see, we've got our seam allowances and we know that this is going to fit exactly in place. So that's a really nice, neat way of getting the lining for our front panels. Now that's all we need at the moment. Now the other pieces of lining that we're going to be cutting out later on are of course for the pockets, and of course are for the decorative belt which goes on the back and it attaches to our clasp. Of course, I've got my clasp here, so the decorative belt will attach to this clasp here. But for now, we have now all of our lining panels cut out and ready to be sewn up into our waistcoat. So the only thing now left to do is cut out our fusings. So I will show you exactly how to do that in the next video.